As Taylor Swift would say, 'tis the damn season. Tax season, that is. We're talking taxes on the Kawartha Small Business Podcast. I'm Brian Rump.
And I'm Matt Garrity of Matt E.G. Digital.
This is the Kawartha Small Business Podcast. We have business conversations for the Kawartha commute. This episode is sponsored by Starting Point Digital Marketing. You know you should be doing digital marketing, but never seem to have the time to do it right. Your small business deserves to have good marketing that is quick, easy, and inexpensive. Starting Point Digital Marketing provides intentionally simple marketing designed just for you. Head over to startingpointdigitalmarketing.ca to get started now. Okay, it is tax season and we're talking taxes. Do you love taxes?
Love taxes. Love giving all of my hard-earned money away to the government so they can distribute it equally and effectively across this great nation, Brian.
Awesome. Sounds good. That sounds like an episode to me. All right. Taxes. I think we are way too obsessed with taxes sometimes, but it's also fascinating because we're also way too confused about taxes, maybe even more, especially when it comes to businesses and small businesses. What do you think about that statement?
Why do you think that we're confused by it? I can understand why we're obsessed with it. I think we're obsessed with it collectively as citizens because it's just the typical, we think people are trying to get hands on our money. And as business owners, maybe it is an ego thing where we think, hey, we've worked even harder now for this money, which may or may not be true. It's probably not true. But we've now, because of our egos, think that we work so hard that we deserve every penny we make, and we're even more angry when we have to give it up.
Yeah, so I think there's several psychological battles happening with sort of taxes and sort of, the philosophy of why taxes exist and that we're, sort of humans and have to work collaboratively and collectively. I don't really want to dive into the merits of should taxes exist. I think I'd like to try to steer away from some of the political arguments, which really is just set up to be a fight of taxes good versus taxes bad, or that somehow working harder merits you to pay less taxes, when that's not really, anyway, I don't think fair, or it's odd. Anyway, but I think where we get confused and obsessed is taxes are, historically they've been set up for random reasons. They get confusing. It's not clear. So we have a situation in Canada where the Canada Revenue Agency will say to you as either individual or business owner, hey, you owe us some money. We're not going to tell you how much you owe, but you owe us some money and you better pay it by this certain date or there will be a penalty. We're not going to tell you what that penalty is. You're going to have to tell us what that penalty is.
That's my biggest problem with taxes, to be completely honest with you, is what other industry or service does someone say something like that? Like, hey, you owe us something. And we're like, okay, how much do we owe you? And they're like, well, you tell us.
Yeah.
And
so it's very
out on our own. And I think that's when we get even more cynical about taxes too, because that's when different accountants might have different ways that they do things. People are going to find different loopholes, all those different things where there's just not, maybe there is, and you can disagree. I don't know if there's a clear set of rules and regulations that we're supposed to follow.
So it's not that clear. I forget how long it is, but the tax code and guidelines, I think the yearly updates are usually 600 pages. So it's crazy. And it's like a scaffolding of new rules. And, it is very political. So a different government will come in and they'll say, hey, it's unfair that, business owners have to pay this, right? So we're going to change this rule, and they'll layer it on, but they don't always think of all the impacts and, who does that apply to, who doesn't not apply to. And you just get this weird set of rules. There's a guy I heard on a podcast. I think he goes by the Grumpy Accountant, who's an accountant in Toronto, and they have sort of a great book that basically in general, especially the middle class, is overtaxed, and it's so confusing. People spend so much preparing their taxes and for what they pay that it would be easier to almost just not have taxes, or just have some other methods. And I don't want to get into other methods as well, because there's sort of people who are purists, where they're like, there should only be like a flat tax for everyone, or there should only be land taxes, or there should only be whatever. So we end up with a mix of taxes and a mix of rules. So it becomes very confusing and not really fair to anyone. And then when we try to fix it, it just erupts into debate, because of course everybody wants whatever's best for them in terms of fairness. So there's really no perfect way to sort of do it. So in a way, we have to just accept that taxes are a reality. Taxes are confusing, but there's things we can do to remove that stress as much as possible, and plan for it, and not get super obsessed over it.
Yeah, and taxes ultimately. I've been messing around for most of this podcast and like my disdain for tax, but taxes for the most part are good. Like, think back on the last year that we've had. There's a lot of people that are listening that are probably taking advantage of a lot of the business relief funds given out by the government, a lot of the CERB that's been given out by the government. If you're driving to your business today, you can thank the government for that paved road that you probably drove by. If you're up first thing in the morning, driving into work, and you're able to drive down the street on a lighted street, you can thank the government for that. Like, there are good things our taxes go towards, things that we need, like absolute necessities.
Yeah, I think people vastly underestimate what it just costs to have the services that they typically use. So, I mean, most people I know, my peer group, are all net sort of takers of tax systems. You use those public services, and that type of thing. So I think that's where, again, I don't want to go too deep into like the taxes are the devil or we don't need them, but really, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably not paying millions of dollars in taxes per year. You're probably not even paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes a year. It's probably in the thousands, tens of thousands, hopefully, because that means you're a profitable business. So, my real focus for small business owners is, taxes. You don't want to pay more than your share, which is what's key to having good record keeping, having an accountant, making sure that you're navigating those rules so you're not overpaying. But at the same time, taxes should also be a celebration, because if you're paying taxes, it means you're making money, right?
Okay, that's fair. I honestly wish that there was a camera on me when you said that, because I was like, oh no, Brian. No.
Yeah, no. But, and everyone sort of like gets a bit angry when I say that.
Yeah.
But I have some clients that I coach, and we've turned paying taxes into like a win to celebrate. And for those clients, coming from a period before they worked with me to being so sort of angry about taxes and always surprised by their tax bills, always behind, to the point where we, planned for them and had that money set aside. Now it's like, it's awesome. It's like, well, business is doing well, the money's in and ready to go, like let's pay it. Because really, like, you know, yeah, you hate taxes, you don't want to pay them, but like you have two choices. You could say I don't want to pay them, and you could sort of pout and have a tantrum and have a fit, or you could really own the libs by not making any money, or you could just, you know, understand their reality, pay them, plan for it, and get over it.
This is the
So
most fun I've ever had on our podcast. I never thought I would hear you say own the libs on a podcast.
I know we got Taylor Swift and owning the libs on this. This is the best tax related podcast in the history of podcasts.
When you first said that taxes were a cause for celebration, I actually thought you were ridiculous. And then the more I started listening to you and being open minded, I fully agree. And I will share a story that I kind of experienced within the last year, talking to a mortgage broker, and I have certain financial goals. And he had explained to me, well, like if you want to reach this goal, you're going to have to make this amount in salary next year. But you're not going to want to do that because then you're going to pay this much in tax. And at the time, I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds awful. And then as we're moving into tax season this year, and I'm thinking, no, like I really hope that I made that much in salary so I can pay that much in tax, because now I know I'm like really close to that financial goal that I wanted. And then I'll be like very happy with myself. They will actually expedite this whole process.
Yeah, like it's about like you have to, you know, pay it. And I think so from a small business standpoint, I think and I see it over and over. People, and one of the reasons they get so worried about their cash, and this is a whole other podcast, is they don't manage it right. So they spend it all, and then it's like, oh, here's your tax bill, and they're like, I don't have any of that cash. Where did it go? And that's why, you know, as a business owner, we have to plan your cash management. We have to plan and structure a business so that you're making enough money to pay for what it costs to both run the business and plan for your taxes. There's no special. I had somebody recently say, well, what are the, what's available to small business owners, as if, you know, the government's done a great job of making you think there's all these supports, but nobody's going to say, oh, here, you get a tax holiday. That doesn't happen. Like you still have to pay your taxes. You pay different taxes. So there's income taxes, there's CPP. So a lot of, if you're self-employed, you have to pay the employer's portion of your CPP. There's, if you have employees, you're withholding their income tax, but you're also paying, the employer portion of CPP and EI. There's sales taxes as well. This is one where you're really just collecting that on behalf of the government. I've heard people sort of get up on their soapbox and talk about how much taxes they pay, but really it's like they have a high volume business and they have a lot of HST that they're collecting on their product. So that's not really them paying it. They're collecting it on behalf of the government. And that's just part of business, right? Like you don't get a special permit to not charge taxes for running a business. So really it's about managing those taxes.
Yeah, and I think one really, really, really important thing that you mentioned that I wanted to bring up was business owners at the end of the year being surprised by their tax bill and not having any cash left to pay it. And I've had a couple people I know, as soon as I started my own business, warned me about this. And they said, put aside just simply 20% as a number. I've heard 15, 10's too low, 30 maybe percent, but put aside 20% of every incoming dollar to your business for income tax time. Because otherwise you're going to turn around and who knows how successful your business is going to be. You might owe 10 grand, 20 grand, 30, 40, 50. And that's extremely jarring, especially if you don't have it. You need to make sure that that money is set aside. Like, don't even consider it yours.
Yeah. And And that's one of the biggest mindsets for self-employed. If you're an employee, you pay taxes, but your employer takes that off of every payroll. They submit it to the government. And when you do your tax return at the end of the year, it's sort of just calculating it to make sure that they withheld enough, or maybe they withheld too much and you get a refund. But, you know, knowing that you have to pay it differently. Some people will just remit that to the government right away. They'll make installment payments if you have trouble keeping hold of cash in your account. And that's okay to do too, but just knowing that you're going to have to do that. A couple tips just on knowing then how much you have to pay brings me back to the importance of having good bookkeeping and records. So you want to be able to know as a business um, how much your income is, obviously. So having good invoices, recording when that income is accrued as well. So when you do that work, um, and then tracking your expenses. And with your expenses, one thing I don't want to dive in too much, but understand that, you know, when you have a business, really what you spend money on should only be what you need to spend it on to make yourself more money. Um,
Mm.
some people will take some liberties with that. They'll spend more out of their business account and say it's a business expense. Uh, from a business standpoint, that might be okay, and you're okay with that as the owner. But from a tax point of view, not every expense will reduce your taxes owed. So the clearer you can have those records, the easier it's going to be to calculate quickly what that amount owed is. Um, if you're a sole proprietor, you're considered an individual. Taxes are due to be filed by the end of April. If you owe money, you got to pay it then too. There are some rules, and again, I'm not a tax specialist about you can have longer into June if you owe money, or there's different, you know, sort of filing deadlines. But really, if it's say January, like we're recording this in January, we'll give up our secrets. And you know how much you're going to owe by the end of April. If you're a bit short on cash, at least now you can maybe catch up a little bit. If you wait till the last week of April, which, working at Greg Evans Accounting, and lots of people will wait till the last minute to drop all their stuff off. They haven't done any tally on their own. And then that's where you get that surprise. Oh, by the way, you owe $50,000 and you have to pay it tomorrow. That's a lot of anxiety that's not necessary.
Absolutely. This made me think of another podcast that we should write down: top 10 dumbest things you can do as a business owner.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you one of those top 10 dumbest things you can do as a business owner. And again, not to be dramatic, but one of the dumbest things you can do as a business owner is try to be your own accountant.
Yeah.
Completely honest with you. You are going to miss out on so much opportunity. You are going to probably lose money. You may get yourself in financial trouble. And it is just a complete resource suck on you for something that you are going to put so much time into, and then ultimately you're not going to get it right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, it's so true, because even, working at an accounting office, and we have, bookkeepers and accountants who are professionals and they do this every day. They still run into situations every day where they're not quite sure what to do. So they have to go find out and figure it out and clarify it. And that's with years and years and years of experience. Now, it might only take them 10 minutes to clarify it. But if it were me trying to figure that out, it would take me hours and hours. And I might not have even realized it was something I had to figure out. So, everything could be wrong. So, I think, obviously I recommend hiring a professional. Do it early on. We get at the office here, people will be like, well, I've had a business for 4 years and haven't filed any taxes. Could you please, help me out with that? And it's usually really scary. It never goes well. you're in a business to earn money for your family and make money. You're not in a business to work really hard and not pay any taxes or then cripple yourself by having a big catch up tax bill. It happens every now and then. We see it often. You grow really fast. You don't set on you don't realize how much you're going to owe. You got to bite the bullet and catch up a little bit. But overall, you shouldn't be surprised by these things.
How do you not file taxes for your business for 4 years? Like, be an adult. How do you not?
Well,
Taxes are as routine as Tom Brady in the Super Bowl.
yeah, it's true. It's one of those things. But again, like the government is like, you owe us some taxes. You have to tell us how much.
Yeah.
And you have to follow these rules. But some people just don't know about the rules.
Sure.
And no one's coming after you right away and be like, hey, you forgot to file your taxes yesterday. Like it catches up to you later on. Like, we have at the office people who have done some taxes that have been, they decided just to not pay for and pick them up. And it's like, someday you're going to get a demand. And when I was with the bank, it was routine to get tax demands for businesses. And what happens is they basically go out and freeze all of your bank accounts until you pay. So like I've had businesses just basically shut down or they just cut off their cash because they owe. I mean, I've seen hundreds of thousands of dollars. And now you're scrambling at the last, to try to figure out these problems. And they're all avoidable.
Yeah.
By getting ahead of it. Another note.
Because my first year of business was doing my own bookkeeping and it was fine. And I was making my HST payments quarterly and all that kind of stuff. And then a year and a bit into the business, I got hooked up with Greg Evans Professional Corporation and they started doing my bookkeeping. And then my bookkeeper, who was literally fantastic, one day brought to my attention that hey, I missed something from an HST filing. It wasn't malicious. It wasn't on purpose. It was just, I missed a couple $100. Super fair. And I remember she pointed out, she's like, you owe $400. And I'm like, okay, cool. And it wasn't even 30 days later when the government spotted it and was like, oh, by the way, now you owe us $600. And that was in a span of 4 weeks. And I was like, I was honestly rattled, but I was so thankful that a professional had caught that and brought it to my attention before it was a year or two from now. And the government was like, oh, by the way, remember when you missed paying the $400? Now it's $4,000, you idiot.
Yeah. Just those things like that. And then you're trying to figure out why, and you're probably busy that day with running your business and you're dealing with dead data. That's over. That's that's past guy figuring that out. So it's not fun. Just another note that's sometimes confusing for small businesses, especially if you're new, and taxes, and when to file and when they're due. We've pretty much been talking about small businesses who would be sole proprietors or partnerships and individuals. But if you're incorporated and a corporation, your filing deadlines will be linked to whenever your year end is. So if you have a year end that is August, then you would be, doing your taxes typically before the end of November. So it's typically 3 months. There's some rules, sort of 3 to 6 months. Again, I don't want to dissect all of that. My thing really is try to get them done as early as possible, so that you at least know. If you owe something and you want to delay the filing as long as you can, and payment, then that's okay. But you just want to know these things so that, again, no surprises. Taxes, compliance, they're all dealing with the past. You want to be focused more of your energy on the future and growing and getting things done. So you just don't want to have those past surprises from the past coming up to bite you.
Yeah, like an ex-girlfriend that just pops up.
Exactly.
Take care of it.
Yeah. All right. Anything else to add? Any other questions on taxes?
No, I think the one last thing I would maybe chat about super quickly, because I know we want to wrap it up, is when a new business needs to start paying HST on taxes. So the concern and the question I have for you, because you are a self-proclaimed tax expert,
Yeah.
is I know it's $30,000 you have to make before you have to file taxes. Is it you don't need to do anything? Sorry, you don't need to collect taxes for up to 30 grand. Is it from 30 grand on, or do they retroactive look at the 30 grand?
That's a really good question, and I get confused by it all the time. So I would say talk to your accountant. What my general recommendation is if you're getting into business with the idea that this is going to make a living for you, register for HST, start collecting it and remitting it.
Right away.
So that's the easiest way to do that. You're not avoiding anything. If you're not sure or this is going to be a part-time business, then watch it and be careful. But what happens is if you don't charge HST and you should have charged HST, you now still have to pay it. So either you're cutting HST off of your margins of what you made and you paid it, or you're going back to people to say, hey, I didn't charge you HST. I'd like to, which for a business, if you have a good relationship, you should be able to do that because that's sort of the rules, and they can reduce that, from what they've collected. But from an individual, like nobody's going to come back and be like, oh yeah, here's this. The other thing, and I've seen it 5 or 6 times in the fitness industry, is people stop or don't charge HST because they don't think they're going to make enough. And then they grow and they do make enough. And then it's like, well, I have to start charging HST now. So they start adding it onto their bills. Well, everyone is just like, all your customers are like, well, you just increased your prices 13%. And they don't like that big jump all of a sudden. And you don't get any value of that. You just get sort of the anger from the customer. So you really have to build in, and this is a whole other economics and sort of who pays the taxes. Is it the customer or the business? But you have to factor it into your pricing strategy of, what the taxes are going to be. So you might as well just register and pay for the taxes. If you don't make the 30,000, it's still okay. Or,
Yeah.
You've collected it, you can pay it. But really it's back down to, are you a hobby business, in which case proceed with caution, or pay an accountant to tell you. And if you're a serious business, just do it because, when you get busier later, you don't want to forget or mess it up.
Absolutely. No, that's great advice. Just, start paying HST as fast as humanly possible.
Yeah. It also just makes you look like a more legit business if you have HST on your invoice and you're charging HST. But if you're like, hey, here's an invoice for $5,000, but I don't even make 30 grand in a year, so I'm not charging you HST. If you're presenting yourself as a professional, then that might, not, be giving that impression a little bit.
Yeah. Very good point.
Awesome. All right. Well, that sounds like an episode to me. Thank you for listening. If you want to talk more about taxes, reach out, set it up at kawarthasmallbusinesspodcast.ca, and we will probably just connect you with a proper tax expert. Thank you.